Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that so many of us have experienced: mixed signals. You know the feeling? He says one thing, does another, and suddenly you're left spinning, questioning your worth, questioning his intentions. But here's the truth you need to hear today: his confusion is not your responsibility. When someone sends mixed signals, the instinct is to chase, to explain, to try harder. But the most powerful thing you can do is the opposite: step back. Step back. Focus on your life, your passions, your ambitions. Because when you stop reacting to his every message or action, something incredible happens. You create emotional space. This space forces clarity. It forces him, or anyone sending mixed signals, to either step up or step aside. And here's the key: your value is not determined by someone else's indecision. Your energy, your time, your heart, they're precious. Protect them. By prioritizing yourself, by focusing on what lights you up, you automatically change the dynamic. Suddenly, respect replaces uncertainty. Suddenly, attraction replaces confusion. You're no longer the person who's waiting, guessing, or doubting. You're the person who is living fully, unbothered by hesitation or indecision. When we talk about mixed signals in relationships, it's easy to immediately internalize them, to think that their inconsistency or confusion has something to do with your actions, your worth, or your appeal. But here's the reality: mixed signals are not a reflection of who you are. They are a reflection of their own uncertainty, fears, and emotional state. Every time someone sends you a message, cancels plans last minute, or says they want closeness and then pulls away, it can feel like a direct judgment of your value. You might find yourself questioning: am I not good enough? Am I too much or not enough? Did I say something wrong? But this line of thinking is exactly what traps people in frustration and anxiety. It's important to step back and realize that someone's mixed signals have everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. People send mixed signals for countless reasons that have nothing to do with you personally. They might be navigating their own insecurities, unsure of what they want, or struggling with previous relationship wounds that make commitment difficult. Some people fear losing their independence or feel conflicted between desire and caution. Others may simply lack emotional awareness, failing to realize the inconsistency in their words and actions. The truth is, when someone is sending mixed signals, it's rarely a carefully calculated strategy to hurt or confuse you. It's their internal conflict spilling out, and you absorbing it doesn't make it your problem. When you internalize their behavior as your fault, it can lead to patterns of overthinking, apologizing, or overextending yourself in an attempt to fix the situation. You might find yourself replaying every interaction in your head, analyzing every text, every tone, every pause, trying to decode the meaning behind every word. This is exhausting, and it places the burden of their emotional state squarely on your shoulders. But the moment you recognize that their mixed signals are not about you, you release yourself from that exhausting cycle. You stop giving your energy to trying to control or interpret someone else's uncertainty, and instead focus on your own clarity, your own values, and your own standards for how you want to be treated. One of the most empowering aspects of understanding this is the shift in perspective it creates. Instead of asking yourself, "What did I do wrong?" you can start asking, "What does this behavior tell me about them?" This is crucial because mixed signals are a reflection of the other person's readiness, willingness, and emotional capacity. They reveal whether someone is truly capable of meeting you with consistency, honesty, and respect. Recognizing this allows you to make informed decisions about how to invest your time, energy, and emotional resources, rather than endlessly bending yourself to chase validation from someone who is uncertain. It's also worth noting that mixed signals can serve as a powerful mirror. When someone's actions are inconsistent, they unintentionally show you what you truly value in relationships. They highlight your own need for respect, clear communication, and emotional reciprocity. By acknowledging that their mixed signals are not your fault, you reclaim your power to set boundaries, communicate your needs, and prioritize people who can meet you where you are. You stop trying to negotiate with uncertainty and start focusing on relationships that are reciprocal, healthy, and mutually fulfilling. Furthermore, understanding that mixed signals are not your fault allows you to embrace emotional freedom. You no longer tie your self-esteem to someone else's inconsistent behavior. You no longer feel compelled to chase or manipulate their feelings. Instead, you gain the clarity to act intentionally, whether that means stepping back, creating space, or redirecting your attention to those who are capable of showing up fully. It's a mindset shift that is both liberating and transformative because it teaches you that your worth is inherent and it does not fluctuate based on someone else's indecision. Another important dimension of this is recognizing the emotional energy you save. When you stop blaming yourself for someone else's mixed signals, you redirect your energy toward your own growth, passions, and purpose. You stop overanalyzing interactions, stop stressing about their behavior, and start investing in yourself. This doesn't just make you feel better emotionally, it also changes how others perceive you. People are naturally drawn to those who are grounded, self-assured, and emotionally independent. Ironically, the moment you stop chasing someone's approval or trying to decode their mixed signals, you become far more magnetic because you're demonstrating self-respect and confidence. Understanding that mixed signals are not your fault is about taking responsibility for your own emotional state while refusing to take responsibility for someone else's confusion. It's a lesson in emotional intelligence, in self-respect, and in clarity. It's about recognizing that your reactions, your boundaries, and your decisions should never be dictated by someone else's inconsistency. Instead, they should be guided by your own values, desires, and standards. When you adopt this perspective, you create a foundation for healthier interactions, more authentic connections, and, most importantly, a stronger sense of self-worth that cannot be shaken by someone else's uncertainty. When it comes to relationships, one of the most underrated tools a person can wield is silence. Not just the absence of words, but the deliberate, conscious choice to step back, pause, and stop reacting impulsively to someone's behavior. Silence is powerful because it shifts the dynamic from one of reaction to one of observation. Often, when someone is giving mixed signals, the natural instinct is to respond immediately. Texting back, calling, asking questions, or seeking reassurance. We do this because we want clarity, we want control, and we want to fix the discomfort that uncertainty brings. But here's the truth: responding constantly or over, communicating only fuels the chaos. It keeps you entangled in their indecision, giving them power over your emotional state. Silence, on the other hand, creates space, and in that space, clarity begins to emerge. Silence is not about playing games, pretending to be indifferent, or trying to manipulate someone's feelings. It's about choosing yourself over their confusion. It's the conscious decision to protect your emotional energy and stop reacting to inconsistency as though it defines you. When you remain silent instead of chasing, you shift the balance of power. You demonstrate that your attention, your affection, and your presence are valuable. You show that you are not someone who will bend, scramble, or overextend to fill the gaps left by their uncertainty. This alone can be incredibly transformative, not just for the relationship, but for how you feel about yourself. One of the most important effects of silence is that it forces the other person to reflect. When someone has grown accustomed to your constant responses, your attention, or your eagerness to explain or apologize, they may not have faced the reality of their own behavior. By stepping back and holding silence, you remove the comfort of your immediate reaction. This absence can be a mirror, allowing them to see their mixed signals for what they are. It creates an environment where they either rise to the occasion and show consistency or reveal that they are unable or unwilling to meet you fully. In other words, silence exposes truth. Silence also cultivates patience and self-control, two qualities that are immensely attractive and magnetic. When you choose not to react impulsively, you demonstrate emotional intelligence. You are showing that your happiness, your peace of mind, and your self-respect are not dependent on someone else's behavior. This is a subtle but powerful signal to anyone sending mixed messages. It communicates that you are centered, grounded, and capable of maintaining your emotional equilibrium regardless of their uncertainty. And ironically, people who are unclear or inconsistent often respond with more clarity when they realize they no longer have immediate access to your reactions. Furthermore, silence allows you to observe objectively. When you are not caught up in the need to respond, explain, or justify yourself, you can see patterns and behaviors with fresh eyes. You notice how often they follow through, whether their actions align with their words, and how they behave when there are no external pressures or reactions from you. Observation without interference gives you the insight necessary to make informed decisions. It's a strategic pause that enables discernment rather than impulsive involvement based on emotion or anxiety. Silence also serves as a form of self-preservation. When you're constantly responding to mixed signals, your emotional energy is drained. You might feel anxious, frustrated, or insecure. By embracing silence, you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your peace of mind. You redirect it toward yourself, toward your goals, your passions, and your growth. This not only improves your emotional health, but also raises your personal standard. People are naturally drawn to those who are full, grounded, and self-contained rather than those who appear needy or reactive. Another aspect of the power of silence is that it allows for authenticity to surface. When you are not over-explaining, over-texting, or over-chasing, you create a space where both you and the other person can interact more genuinely. The relationship is no longer filtered through constant reaction or anxiety. Instead, it has the potential to become more honest, direct, and aligned with reality. Silence is not emptiness, it's intentionality. It's a statement that you are present, aware, and intentional about where you place your attention. The power of silence lies in its ability to shift dynamics without confrontation. It changes the energy from chasing to observing, from reacting to responding, from dependency to self-possession. It's a practice of patience, self-respect, and awareness. When you stop trying to control the other person or force clarity through constant engagement, you allow the truth to emerge naturally. You also teach yourself that your value is independent of someone else's mixed signals. Silence is not passive, it is a powerful, strategic, and liberating act that transforms the way you interact, the way you are perceived, and the way you feel about yourself. Creating emotional space in a relationship is one of the most underestimated and powerful strategies when dealing with mixed signals. Many people assume that closeness and constant availability are the keys to connection, but the truth is the opposite. Emotional space is not about withdrawing affection or care. It's about giving both yourself and the other person the room to breathe, reflect, and act with clarity. When someone is sending mixed signals, there's often an underlying tension that stems from confusion, insecurity, or indecision. If you crowd that tension with your own neediness, constant communication, or attempts to solve the problem, you amplify it, making the situation even more chaotic. Emotional space creates a buffer, a pause in the energy, which allows reality to emerge naturally without manipulation, pressure, or overreaction. Emotional space begins with understanding that you are not responsible for the other person's feelings or choices. When someone acts inconsistently, your first instinct may be to fill in the gaps, to explain, reassure, or chase. But each time you do, you are taking on the burden of their uncertainty. By intentionally creating emotional space, you reclaim that responsibility and place it where it belongs with them. You stop investing in someone's indecision and start investing in yourself. This shift in energy is critical because it transforms how you feel internally while simultaneously altering the dynamics of the relationship externally. Space is a form of self-respect. It communicates that you value your own emotional well-being and will not allow inconsistency to dictate your mood, energy, or sense of worth. Another important element of emotional space is that it allows patterns to reveal themselves. When you are constantly engaged with someone sending mixed signals, it is difficult to see the truth. You may rationalize inconsistencies, make excuses, or convince yourself that this is normal behavior. By stepping back, you give yourself the distance necessary to observe the relationship objectively. You start to notice the frequency of their follow-through, the alignment between words and actions, and their ability, or inability, to meet you with consistency. This observation is crucial for informed decision-making. Emotional space creates clarity, and clarity is the foundation of empowered choices in any relationship. Emotional space also serves as a test of priorities and intentions. When someone is truly invested in you, the absence of constant attention does not weaken their connection, it strengthens it. They respond to your presence intentionally rather than taking it for granted. Mixed signals often come from a lack of self-awareness or commitment, and creating emotional space exposes that. You give them room to demonstrate who they really are rather than who they might pretend to be when you are always available. In this sense, space functions as both a filter and a mirror. It filters out those who are inconsistent or emotionally unavailable and mirrors back to you what you genuinely deserve. Furthermore, emotional space enhances your own sense of independence and self-worth. By stepping back, you remind yourself that your happiness is not contingent on someone else's behavior. You create a mental and emotional environment in which you are free to focus on your goals, passions, and personal growth. This not only improves your emotional resilience, but also makes you more magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who are self-contained, confident, and emotionally grounded. Ironically, the very act of creating space, of not clinging or overreacting, often increases someone's desire to engage with you in a healthy, meaningful way. Creating emotional space does not mean abandoning communication altogether. It means being intentional with your attention and energy. It means recognizing when to step back, pause, or limit engagement without burning bridges or withdrawing care unnecessarily. This intentional distance allows you to interact from a position of strength rather than fear. It allows you to respond rather than react, to set boundaries rather than chase approval, and to engage with clarity rather than confusion. Emotional space, when practiced consistently, creates a new dynamic in the relationship, one in which respect, consistency, and alignment become the baseline rather than the exception. Another critical dimension is that emotional space cultivates patience. Relationships that are rushed or overcrowded with constant attention rarely allow for genuine growth or self-reflection. Space provides the opportunity for both parties to process feelings, evaluate intentions, and respond with thoughtfulness rather than impulse. It encourages maturity, accountability, and intentionality. By giving space, you are creating the conditions for a healthier, more balanced connection, one that is based on choice and effort, not on pressure or desperation. Creating emotional space is about reclaiming your power, autonomy, and perspective. It is about stepping out of the cycle of reaction and taking a deliberate stance where your emotional energy is respected and preserved. Space is not emptiness, it is strategy. It is the calm in the middle of emotional chaos that allows clarity, truth, and self-respect to emerge. When you practice this consistently, you not only protect yourself from the stress of mixed signals, but also encourage the relationship to evolve naturally. Those who are capable of showing up fully will rise to the occasion, and those who are not will reveal themselves without any need for confrontation. In essence, emotional space is both a shield and a lens. It shields your heart from unnecessary turmoil and provides a clear view of the reality unfolding before you. Prioritizing your own life is one of the most powerful and transformative strategies you can adopt, especially when navigating the confusion of mixed signals. Too often, people allow their energy, time, and focus to become consumed by someone else's indecision, forgetting that the foundation of attraction, respect, and fulfillment begins with their own sense of purpose and direction. When you prioritize your own life, you are making a conscious decision to invest in yourself first, to nurture your passions, pursue your goals, and cultivate your personal growth, regardless of what someone else is doing or not doing. This is not selfishness, it is self-respect, and it is the cornerstone of healthy, balanced relationships. When someone sends mixed signals, it can be incredibly tempting to shift your focus entirely onto them. You may find yourself waiting for calls, obsessing over messages, or rearranging your schedule to accommodate their availability. But in doing so, You risk placing your happiness and sense of worth in the hands of someone whose own behavior is inconsistent. Prioritizing your own life means stepping out of this trap. It means recognizing that your value is inherent and that your time, energy, and attention are precious resources. You stop letting uncertainty dictate your mood or your choices, and instead, you channel your energy into pursuits that enrich your life, expand your skills, and deepen your sense of fulfillment. Prioritizing your own life also communicates something incredibly powerful to the person sending mixed signals. It communicates that you are a complete, self-sufficient individual. People are naturally drawn to those who are independent, confident, and emotionally grounded. When you are fully engaged in your own life, pursuing your passions and ambitions, you radiate an energy that is magnetic. You are no longer chasing validation or approval, and this shift alone often changes the dynamics of the relationship. Instead of reacting to their inconsistency, you create an environment where they must step up or step aside, and you do so from a place of clarity, strength, and self-respect. Another key aspect of prioritizing your own life is that it fosters emotional resilience. When your happiness is tied primarily to your own growth, achievements, and passions, you become less vulnerable to the ups and downs of someone else's behavior. Mixed signals lose their power over you because your emotional well-being does not hinge on someone else's indecision. This is an empowering mindset shift. Rather than being controlled by anxiety, doubt, or the fear of losing someone, you are guided by purpose, self-worth, and clarity. You can engage with relationships from a place of choice rather than fear, and this distinction transforms every interaction. Prioritizing your own life also allows you to set clear boundaries without guilt. When your time, energy, and attention are already directed toward meaningful pursuits, it becomes easier to notice when someone's behavior is draining, inconsistent, or disrespectful. You recognize the value of your own presence, and you are no longer willing to expend it on someone who cannot show up fully. Boundaries are not about punishment. They are about self-protection and clarity. They allow you to maintain your integrity and focus on relationships that are reciprocal, healthy, and aligned with your values. In addition, prioritizing your own life encourages personal growth and fulfillment, which naturally enhances your attractiveness. There is a unique energy that comes from living intentionally, pursuing your goals, and cultivating your skills, passions, and interests. When you are engaged in your own journey, you exude confidence, purpose, and independence, qualities that draw people in without any need to chase or manipulate. In essence, by focusing on your own life, you become a living example of self-respect and intentionality, which often inspires others to meet you with equal clarity, respect, and consistency. It's also worth noting that prioritizing your own life reduces the emotional dependency that often fuels mixed signal dynamics. When you are not waiting for validation or reassurance from someone else, you operate from a position of empowerment rather than reaction. This does not mean withdrawing care or avoiding connection. It means choosing when and how to engage intentionally. It allows you to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, to invest your energy wisely rather than expend it in frustration, and to maintain your dignity and self-worth in the face of uncertainty. Prioritizing your own life is about creating a full, vibrant, and independent existence that cannot be diminished by someone else's inconsistency. It's about focusing on the people, projects, and passions that enrich your life while letting go of the need to control, chase, or fix someone else's behavior. When you live this way, you not only improve your own happiness and fulfillment, but also transform the dynamics of your relationships. Mixed signals no longer hold power over you because your attention and energy are rooted firmly in your own life, growth, and purpose. It is through this commitment to yourself that clarity, respect, and authentic connection naturally follow. When dealing with mixed signals, one of the most transformative strategies you can adopt is learning to observe and respond rather than chase. This principle may sound simple at first, but it requires a deep understanding of self-control, emotional intelligence, and the dynamics of attraction. Too often, people fall into the trap of chasing someone who is inconsistent reacting impulsively to every text, call, or action, and attempting to fill the gaps left by their indecision. Chasing is driven by fear, neediness, and the desire for control. Observing and responding, on the other hand, is rooted in self-respect, clarity, and conscious choice. It allows you to maintain your emotional balance while gaining insight into the other person's true intentions and behavior. The first step in this approach is observation. Observing is not passive, it is intentional and active. It requires paying attention to patterns, words, and actions without the distortion of emotion or projection. When someone sends mixed signals, observation allows you to see the reality of their behavior without the cloud of hope or anxiety. You notice whether their words align with their actions, how often they follow through, and how they behave when there is no pressure or expectation from you. Observation is about gathering information objectively rather than reacting emotionally. It is a practice of awareness that puts you in a position of clarity and power. Observation also teaches you to recognize red flags early. Mixed signals often carry subtle indicators of inconsistency, unreliability, or emotional unavailability. By observing carefully, you can identify these patterns before investing too much emotional energy. This prevents you from getting caught in cycles of confusion and disappointment. Observation allows you to see the relationship as it truly is, rather than as you wish it to be. It is a protective strategy that ensures your choices are informed and intentional. Once you have observed, the next critical step is response. Responding is entirely different from chasing. When you respond, you act from a place of intentionality and choice, rather than compulsion or fear. You engage with the other person on your own terms, guided by your values, boundaries, and standards. For example, if someone cancels plans or sends unclear messages, you do not immediately scramble to explain, convince, or accommodate. Instead, you respond calmly, setting boundaries and maintaining your emotional equilibrium. Responding is about taking action that aligns with your worth, rather than reacting to someone else's inconsistency. This principle also reinforces the importance of self-respect. When you chase, you give your power away. You make your emotional state dependent on someone else's actions, which leaves you vulnerable to disappointment and anxiety. By observing and responding instead, you reclaim your power. You choose when and how to engage, and you no longer allow mixed signals to dictate your mood or your choices. This shift in mindset not only improves your emotional health, but also subtly changes the dynamics of the relationship. People respond differently when they realize that your attention is intentional rather than automatic, and that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. Another key aspect is the cultivation of patience. Observing and responding requires you to resist the urge for immediate clarity or gratification. You allow time for patterns to emerge and for the other person's intentions to reveal themselves. Patience is not passive waiting. It is active awareness combined with deliberate action. It prevents you from jumping to conclusions, overreacting, or making decisions based on temporary emotion. Instead, you respond thoughtfully, with discernment and confidence. This approach also encourages healthy boundaries. When you observe and respond rather than chase, you are able to enforce limits naturally. You recognize when behavior is inconsistent or disrespectful and respond accordingly, without aggression, guilt, or over-explanation. Boundaries are an essential part of this strategy because they maintain your emotional integrity and communicate your standards clearly. They show that you will not compromise your self-worth to accommodate someone else's indecision. Moreover, observing and responding cultivates emotional independence, which is one of the most attractive qualities in any relationship. People are drawn to those who are self-contained, balanced, and confident. When you are not chasing, you operate from a position of strength rather than vulnerability. Your attention becomes intentional, your presence becomes valuable, and your energy becomes magnetic. Ironic. This is when someone who may have been sending mixed signals often begins to respond with clarity and consistency, because they are no longer being coddled or enabled by reactionary behavior. Finally, this principle transforms your overall approach to relationships. You stop getting caught in cycles of confusion and anxiety, and you start engaging from a place of clarity, empowerment, and choice. Mixed signals no longer control you because you are focused on truth, consistency, and your own values. You observe the situation objectively, respond with integrity, and maintain your emotional sovereignty. By doing so, you create a relationship dynamic that attracts respect,